Do you want to take over an existing business and be an entrepreneur, but you don't have enough money? There's a way to get it done. My name is Lynn Hinderocker. This is NxBizSuccess, and I'm happy to introduce you today to Odie Ingersoll. He's one of the honchos at the Nebraska Business Development Center, and Odie has a strategy to get you into the business. If you have 3 to 5 years, you can get it done. Odie, thanks for joining us on NBS.
Lynn, nice to be with you.
Thank you. Hey, you know, there's all kinds of people. They say there's about 42% of all Americans would like to own their own business. But if you talk to all 42% of those people, most of them don't have the money they think they need to get into business, all right?
Sure.
And a lot of them don't really have the chutzpah or the moxie to start something from scratch or bootstrap it. They'd like to take over an existing business that has some cash flow. Again, they don't think they have the money to get it done. Help these people out. Tell me, what do they have to know and be aware of?
Well, you're right. Typically, a startup deal where you're coming in to buy a business, 20 to 30% cash on the total project is going to be required.
Okay.
You know, if you're looking at a $500,000 business, $200,000, a lot to come up with.
That's a lot of cash. A lot of people don't have that sitting around.
That's right. There are methods that working with some exit planning strategies that NBDC can help employ can actually allow a buyer of a business to get into a business for significantly less than that. We always like to see them bring some cash in, but actually we can even do a deal depending on how good the company is that they're buying for no equity.
Wow. Well, I mean, let us just stop and absorb the potency of that idea. Now, NBDC is a non-profit organization, happens to be in the state of Nebraska, and you're like management consultants, business planners. You're not really financiers. Let's just stop for a second and say, we can do this, we can do that. What can you do exactly? How do you help people do this?
Well, we're going to help a business owner, a business buyer, an entrepreneur, really with anything that they need. No, we don't provide financing, but we're going to give them business or strategic plans.
Okay.
We'll prepare loan packages.
Oh, okay.
In this instance, we're actually going to be able to provide valuation and exit planning services that would allow them to get into a new business.
Good, good. Now, would typically a person that aspires to buy an existing business, are they the people that would walk in your door and say, I really want to buy Harry's bowling alley, can you help me out? Or would it be Harry who wants to get out of the bowling alley? Which one of those two parties would contact you and say, give us some advice? We'd
actually like to think that it should be both. The owner of the business needs to plan for that eventuality.
Okay.
But if they haven't and someone has come to our door, we're going to sit down and work it from the other direction and see how we can best get them into that business.
Okay. Now, our viewers of this video podcast were titillated. About a minute ago, we said nothing down potentially. How do you do it? Take me through this somewhat detailed process about how you can get financed and get into a business without as much cash as you typically would need.
Sure. It's really a win-win scenario. If the buyer doesn't have a lot of money coming in, what we do is we look to the value of the business and the cash flow that it produces every month.
Number one.
Okay. Then we value the business using a business valuation or appraisal to determine what the actual fair market value is. Okay. And our goal is to get that buyer 30 to 40% ownership in the company over a very quick period of time. Okay.
And how are you going to do that? That sounds to me like a magic trick right there.
It does. Well, 40% ownership in a business doesn't give you any controlling rights. You're a minority. It's considered to be typically a closely held company, so you can't quickly liquidate it or sell that stock. So the government, the profession, allows us to value that 40% ownership significantly less than what the market would be if you just took the value of the assets and said what's 40% of it. So we're getting them about 50% on the dollar when they're coming in to buy it. Or if you want, we're getting them a 50% discount on that initial purchase. And that gets them into the company much quicker so that they can then go to the bank, finance the remaining purchase of the company in just a couple of years and get the seller completely out of the business.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. Would they go to the bank shortly thereafter? I mean, when the deal's done and the transaction, or would they typically work around the business and hang around for 6 or 8 months? Or I mean, is it something that happens rather quickly then, after the value is reappraised or discounted or whatever?
Well, they're going to work with us. They're going to work with the business seller or the owner.
Right.
It's really going to be up to the seller whether the seller wants to stay around or whether they want to leave immediately and let the new buyer take control of the business.
Okay.
But we're not going to go to the lender with the final loan package until we've successfully completed the purchase of that initial 40% stake, even though it's been discounted. We want them to go in with $0 owed on that 40% stake. And that gives them an excellent opportunity to finance the rest of the purchase.
Okay, all right. Now, would the lender typically be the banker of the seller, or would it be the banker of the buyer that you would approach with this arrangement once it's set up?
Our first choice would probably be the seller's bank, because they're already familiar with the company.
Okay.
And if they have a good history with it. But in all honesty, any lender is going to look at a deal that has great cash flow and has a 40% ownership stake on the part of the buyer.
Okay. Is this formula for success, and it truly is successful, is this kind of a new thing in the evaluation and the exit strategy industry, or has it been percolating on the back burner for years? I mean, is that a common formula, this kind of form of self-financing, or not so common?
No, it's not that common, primarily because it requires some valuation techniques to produce the end result. So it's not something that a typical attorney CPA team is going to probably come up with for a seller.
Okay. Well, Odie Ingersoll with the Nebraska Business Development Center in the Kearney, Nebraska area, but you actually work all over the entire state. You have 7 centers.
That's correct.
And do all the associates at all these different centers understand the implications of this this exit strategy formula that you've just shared with me, or is it you alone?
No, they all understand it. However, our center here in Kearney is the center for all of that activity. Clients would work with their individual MBDC consultant regardless where they're at in the state, but we would also stand alongside that individual and produce a lot of the back office work that goes into preparing this plan.
What an incredible service. Let us just say right up front that somebody who's an aspiring buyer would have to investigate up front the business or the industry that they want to be a part of, right? I mean, that goes unsaid, right?
Right.
You have to approach them, and they have to be generating pretty good cash flow to be able to pull this all off. They can't be an unsuccessful business and do this.
That's right. This is only one way to buy a business. It's not going to be appropriate for maybe a small business that is only able to generate an owner's salary. But if you're producing, much beyond that, there's an opportunity to create a new opportunity for a new person and maybe even some new wealth.
Well, Odie, thank you very much for sharing this with us. This is a huge insight. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. This is NxBizSuccess. Take advantage of this kind of insight offered to you by NBDC. You can get it done, find the right business, get the financing handled. It's possible. Keep going and keep growing.